The city rose with the morning sun, its tall towers catching the light like sharpened spears pointing toward the heavens. People said this was a city that never slept, but deep inside, it hid 1,000 secrets. The streets were always alive, cars honking, vendors shouting, buses packed with tired faces. Yet even in this noise, a strange silence lived, a silence made from unspoken pain. Every sunrise painted the buildings gold, but that gold did not enter most hearts anymore. Many walked fast, pushing through the day with dreams they were too tired to chase. Some smiled like everything was fine, others carried storms in their eyes. This city, bright and proud on the outside, often cracked the souls it was supposed to lift. Like a giant drum, it echoed the battles of rich and poor, some rising higher, some sinking quietly. People whispered stories at bus stops, in salons, in bars. Stories of love turning thin, friends turning strange, homes losing their warmth. Betrayal floated in the air like dust, present even before the story truly began. And if you looked closely, the city seemed like a mirror of human hearts, shining from distance, but when touched, full of wounds it tried to hide. Amara moved through the city like a soft breeze, quiet, graceful, but carrying the weight of storms no one else could see. She was the kind of woman people called strong, only because they had never seen her cry. Every morning she stood before her mirror, powdering her face, adjusting her scarf, brushing her hair slowly, as if arranging her heart piece by piece. But behind the smooth face lived a worry she never spoke about. Her eyes always searched for something. Maybe peace, maybe truth, maybe the old version of her marriage she once believed would last forever. She carried loyalty like a heavy pot of water on her head, balanced, steady, but tiring. Lately, she felt things shifting around her. Kobe's voice felt different. His hugs grew lighter. His phone faced downward. Small changes that stabbed like tiny thorns. Amara tried to ignore the signs, but her heart was wiser than her mind. It whispered at night, "Something is not right." Sometimes she would sit alone on the edge of her bed and wonder, what if my home is breaking quietly? What if I am the last to know? Her patience was her strongest shield, but also the chain that kept her silent. She believed storms could be calmed, but never realized some storms were born inside the house, not the sky. And though she smiled through each day, a dark cloud followed her, growing silently, waiting for the moment it would burst open with truth. Kobe walked through the same city like a man chasing shadows, admired by many, respected by friends, but completely lost to himself. He loved being the man everyone praised, yet he feared the mirror that showed his true face. To most people, Kobe was a responsible husband, a hard-working man. But behind closed doors, he lived two lives. One face for society, another hidden in late-night texts and secret desires. His phone buzzed with messages he told himself didn't matter. Lies covered in phrases like, "I'm working late," "I'm tired," or "Don't wait up." At first, the affair made him feel powerful, like a king ruling two worlds. His ego drank that sweetness. But soon, fear crept into his chest. Fear of losing Amara, fear of being exposed, fear that the fire he lit would grow into something he could not control. Sometimes, late at night, he sat in his car before entering the house, breathing heavily. He felt the weight of his secrets pressing on him. Yet, instead of stopping, he buried them deeper. A shadow followed him wherever he went, stretching longer each day, darkening his marriage, darkening his peace. Kobe pretended not to see it, but deep inside, he knew, the storm he created was coming for him, and it would not knock before entering. Zuri entered the story like a sudden storm, her presence sharp, unpredictable, and impossible to ignore. She walked into the spaces she desired, eyes glinting with a hunger that made the air tense. To her, life was a game of power, and she would claim whatever prize caught her attention, even if it meant breaking hearts. She had learned early that the world rewarded boldness, even when it was cruel, and she embraced that lesson with every step. Her eyes fell on Kobe with a possessive sharpness. The men she chose were always taken, already bound by vows, responsibilities, or respect, but that only made the chase sweeter. To Zuri, Amara was not a person with feelings or dreams. She was a hurdle, a shadow standing between Zuri and the thrill of conquest. "If he will not leave his wife," she whispered to herself one morning, lips curved into a determined smile, "I will push him until he does." Her obsession grew like wildfire, consuming reason, patience, and fear. She moved through the city with a dangerous confidence, the kind of boldness that comes when a person feels she has nothing to lose. Every word she spoke was calculated to charm, every look designed to unsettle, every smile a subtle threat. She did not notice the line she was crossing, the boundary she could never uncross once she stepped over it. Time seemed to slip away, and Zuri's patience grew thin. Nights without attention from Kobe felt like harmattan winds, dry, hot, and relentless. The calm, playful words she once used turned sharp, laced with veiled threats and insinuations. "You promised me, Kobe," she would murmur over the phone, voice soft yet trembling with danger. When sweet words failed, guilt became her weapon. She reminded him of his desires, of what he owed her, until his guilt twisted into submission. Her desperation pushed her into recklessness. She wanted recognition, not secrecy, craving the spotlight of possession over hidden desire. Pride battled her fear of losing control over Kobe, making her bold to the point of folly. Small, unchecked manipulations began to spiral into chaos. She sent messages at odd hours, left notes in his car, lingered outside his office, crossing boundaries without shame. Kobe felt the weight of her unpredictability pressing on him. He lived between two fires, one of comfort at home, one of desire outside. Lies multiplied around him like shadows at sunset, growing longer, darker, impossible to ignore. His phone became both enemy and lifeline, buzzing with messages that demanded answers he could not give. He tried sneaking out with excuses that no longer sounded true. "I have to work late," he muttered, but the tension in his chest betrayed him. Her presence scared him, but his ego anchored him to her attention. Each lie he told created another chain, binding him to a path he knew could not last. He tried balancing what could not be balanced, loyalty and lust, stability and thrill, and failed quietly, each day heavier than the last. Deep inside, he knew, the storm Zuri had brought into his life was growing stronger, and it would not be weathered by lies for long. Amara felt it first in the quiet of the evening, a shift subtle but undeniable. Something in Kobe had changed. His laughter no longer reached his eyes, his words seemed measured, clipped, carrying weight she could not yet name. She noticed the way he avoided her gaze, the small hesitations in his touch, the trembling silence behind a forced smile. She said nothing, though every fiber of her being wanted to ask, to probe, to uncover. Late nights became her shadow companions. She heard whispers from behind closed doors, hushed tones on the phone that ended too quickly. Doors clicked softly, footsteps paused just outside the bedroom, and yet when she asked, he would only murmur, "Work, my love, just work." Her heart twisted in silent protest, but she held herself together, calm as the river's surface, hiding the tremors that rippled beneath. At her desk, she would sit alone after everyone had left, hands folded, mind racing. She protected her dignity like a priceless heirloom, unwilling to let anger, humiliation, or despair spill into the streets. Her intuition became her closest ally, a quiet voice in the dark hours that whispered truths she dared not speak aloud. "Something is wrong. He is not the man I married. The storm is inside our walls." Her nights were heavy, laden with silent grief, each sigh carrying the weight of years of love betrayed. Her pain was quiet, but it pressed down like stone, yet she endured it with the patience of someone who had always believed in the strength of the human heart. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Zuri's anger was reaching its peak. Frustration twisted her lips, fire flickered in her eyes. "If he cannot choose me," she muttered, voice sharp like shattered glass, "then I will remind him who he belongs to." She pulled out her phone and began recording, a message meant to humiliate, to assert victory, to claim a triumph she believed was hers by right. Every word dripped with pride, ego, and cruel triumph. She mocked Amara's worth, her womanhood, every line designed to wound and provoke. "Listen closely, little wife," she whispered bitterly into the recording. "He belongs to me now. You are nothing." Her hand shook slightly, excitement mingling with malice, believing this act would force Kobe to finally choose her. But in blind rage and overconfidence, Zuri's fingers hit send before a second thought. The message soared through the air, meant for Kobe, but landing instead in the hands of Amara. For the first time, Zuri's confidence faltered. Panic clawed at her chest, her boldness collapsing into terror. She realized too late that her own hands had opened the door to disaster. The first true fear she had ever felt surged through her like a cold wind, and in that instant, she understood, the storm she had summoned was coming back to her. Amara's hands trembled as her phone buzzed in the quiet of her room. She hesitated, heart heavy with a feeling she could not yet name. Slowly, she pressed play. The first words spilled into the air, sharp and cruel, each one a jagged stone against the walls of her heart. "You are nothing to him. He belongs to me now. You can pretend, but I have already won." Her breath caught. The pain settled deep, slow, like a river carving through rock. Tears fell silently, warm against her cheeks, but she did not scream, did not lash out. She breathed through it, steadying herself, holding her dignity as though it were the last fragile thing keeping her world from collapsing. The message played again. And again. Each cruel word sank in, etching itself into her mind. The mockery of her worth, the contempt for her love, the arrogance of Zuri's triumph, it all became a mirror reflecting the betrayal she had silently suspected. And yet, within that reflection, a new clarity began to form. Shock gave way to something sharper, quieter, and far more powerful: resolve. Her chest straightened, her eyes focused, and the trembling in her hands turned into a controlled strength. Silence became her shield, not her weakness. Every beat of her heart whispered, "I am still here. I am still whole. I will rise." Strength flowed through her like the first light of dawn breaking after a night too long and too dark. She set her phone down, closed her eyes, and let the anger and sorrow settle into a firm decision. This was no longer only heartbreak. This was awakening. Meanwhile, across town, Kobe's phone shook violently in his hand. Zuri's panicked messages struck him like stones tossed into a fast-flowing river, one after the other, each harder than the last. His carefully built walls of lies were crumbling beneath him, and he felt the weight of every secret pressing down at once. He ran through the streets toward home, legs heavy, heart pounding, mind racing. For the first time, fear replaced arrogance. Amara was slipping away from him, and there was nothing he could say to hold her. The storm he had started, reckless desires, lies, and betrayal, was finally coming for him. It chased him through the city streets, following him into the walls of his home, into the very space where he had thought himself untouchable. And now, he knew, he was not the hunter anymore. He was the prey of his own making. Amara sat quietly in her room, the remnants of tears still dampening her cheeks. She wiped them away slowly, each swipe feeling like a ritual of strength. Her heart, once broken by cruel words, began to steady. She drew in a deep breath, letting the pain settle into a firm resolve. "I will not be undone by this," she whispered to herself. She moved to her desk, where small details of her life became tools of clarity. Papers, receipts, messages, even small signs of Kobe's absence and Zuri's presence, she gathered them carefully. Her hands were calm, her mind sharp. Every piece of evidence she collected became a stone in the foundation of truth she would soon build. Amara observed everything quietly, noting patterns in Kobe's behavior, the hidden traces of Zuri's intrusion, the small lies that had piled up like sandbags against her dignity. She did not confront, did not rage. She watched, listened, and waited. Every detail mattered. Every gesture spoke volumes to the woman who had learned to see through shadows. Something inside her shifted. She was no longer just the hurt wife, the one whose trust had been shattered. She became a woman of strength, her presence commanding even the silence around her. Anger no longer drove her, clarity did. Revenge was a path she discarded quietly, replacing it with the pursuit of justice, understanding, and the truth that demanded respect, not hatred. She drew on a wisdom as old as African skies, the quiet power of women who endured, who saw beyond immediate pain, who acted with patience and intelligence. It guided her hand, it steadied her voice, it prepared her for what must be done. Amara's gaze fell on Kobe's photograph on her phone. She straightened her back, lifted her chin, and whispered, "Tomorrow, everything changes. And I will meet it fully prepared." She was ready for a truth that would ripple through her home, through her heart, and through the lives of those who had underestimated her. Across town, Kobe's phone buzzed relentlessly, Zuri's messages a storm he could no longer control. Each panicked note made him falter, fear seeping into his bones. He rushed through traffic, heart pounding, legs heavy, each step taking him closer to the reckoning he had long ignored. For the first time, he understood. The walls of deception he had built were crumbling, and there was no place to hide. Zuri arrived at his side, her confidence a thin mask. It's under control, Kobe. Don't worry, she said, though the tremor in her fingers betrayed her. Kobe's eyes, however, were fixed on something else. He knew, deep down, that the storm he started was about to catch them all. Amara would choose the place, the moment, and the power of her own voice. And when she did, no lies could withstand her quiet, unwavering strength. Amara placed her phone carefully on the polished table, every movement deliberate, filled with a quiet authority. The weight in the air shifted instantly, as though the room itself held its breath. Kobe shifted uneasily, his hands tightening around his knees. Zuri, confident just moments ago, felt a prickling unease crawl along her spine. With a single tap, Zuri's voice erupted into the room, sharp and cutting. Each word was a dagger wrapped in ego, pride, and cruelty. You think he loves you more? He belongs to me. You are nothing but a shadow behind his real life. Her laughter followed, cruel and mocking, meant to wound, to assert dominance. The words hung like smoke, filling the corners of the room, revealing the venom that had guided her actions. Amara listened with unflinching eyes, letting every syllable land, sinking into the space between them like heavy stones. Kobe's face drained of color, his shame so thick it felt almost tangible. He could not meet her gaze, could not speak. The truth had trapped him like a net he could not escape. Zuri's confidence faltered almost immediately. Her chest tightened, the arrogance that had carried her now melting into panic. She watched as her own voice betrayed her, each sentence exposing her manipulations, her obsession, and the lies she had spun so carefully. The recording ended abruptly, and the room fell into a silence so deep it pressed against their ears. It was a silence that cut sharper than any blade, heavy with reality. Truth stood naked before them, unshielded by excuses, unapologetic and undeniable. No more secrets. No more illusions. Zuri swallowed hard, the bravado that had carried her for weeks dissolving into fear. She realized for the first time that Kobe had never promised her the future she had imagined. The revelation hit her like a scorching wind. She had been only a fleeting escape, a temptation, never the chosen path. Her voice, once so commanding, now quivered as the weight of her own arrogance crushed her spirit. She looked into Amara's calm, unyielding eyes and saw herself reflected, not the conqueror she believed, but a woman exposed, shamed, and humbled. Pride, once her shield, now lay in pieces at her feet, leaving her trembling under the quiet strength of a woman who had endured more than she could ever imagine. Kobe opened his mouth, hoping to speak, to apologize, to find a word that could stitch the fabric of trust he had torn. But the words fell flat, heavy with guilt, crumbling like dry leaves in his hands. He swallowed hard, his chest tight, as he finally saw the hurt he had carved into Amara's heart. Her eyes, calm yet piercing, met his. No fury, no scream, only quiet that cut deeper than any shout ever could. The life he had tried to balance, the double world he had constructed, now felt like chains wrapped around his own neck. Every lie, every stolen moment, returned to him as a weight too heavy to lift. I didn't mean, he whispered, his voice trembling, yet even this faltering plea sounded hollow. Amara's silence was a verdict. It burned, sharp and enduring, more powerful than words of anger ever could be. He understood at last. Betrayal punishes both the victim and the betrayer, and some wounds cannot be undone. Amara drew herself taller, the quiet power of her presence filling the space. Pain had reshaped her into a woman of strength, reborn from the ashes of heartbreak. She turned, her step steady, measured, leaving Kobe and Zuri to confront the ruins of their choices. I am not yours to hold, she said softly, each word deliberate, carrying the weight of her dignity. I will not be part of destruction. She walked away, leaving them in the wreckage of selfish desire, choosing peace over chaos, strength over suffering. In the days that followed, Amara rebuilt her life with care. She focused on her work, each project a step toward purpose and direction. Friendships became her sanctuary, laughter and counsel filling the spaces her heart had feared to open. She learned the quiet power of boundaries, standing firm without apology. Slowly, her heart softened, not for love, but for herself. She understood that true growth comes not from clinging to what breaks you, but from nurturing what strengthens you. In her peace, she carried the wisdom of generations. Strength is found in endurance, dignity shines brighter than revenge, and the heart that walks away unbroken holds power no one can take. Kobe wandered through the empty house, each step echoing in rooms once filled with laughter, warmth, and the hum of shared life. Shadows stretched along the walls like the memories of choices he could never take back. He paused at the doorway of the living room, staring at the silence that now suffocated him, realizing how cold absence could feel. The respect and love he had once held so easily now slipped through his fingers like sand. His ego, once a fortress, now lay in ruins. The validation he had sought, through secret thrills, manipulation, and selfish desire, had cost him peace, family, and the warmth of a woman who had once been his heart. Meanwhile, Zuri's world began to unravel beyond her control. The voice note she had sent, meant only for Kobe, traveled faster than gossip in the marketplace. People whispered her name, pointed, and judged. Her confidence, once bold and unyielding, fractured under the pressure of public scrutiny. She stared at her reflection and saw for the first time the hollowness behind her ambition. The manipulation, the pride, the desperate hunger for a fleeting victory, it had led only to emptiness. Zuri understood, bitterly, that cruelty and deceit never build lasting triumph. In the quiet of the evening, the moral of their actions settled like dust on old paths. Pride walks fast but falls hard when truth arrives. Betrayal grows in darkness but always meets the light. Dignity carries more power than revenge. And a heart that chooses self-respect, walking away from deceit and chaos, holds a victory no one can take away.